Deontological ethics suggests a universal understanding of basic human rights and needs. We instinctively know what is right and what is wrong, what is fair and what is equitable. I'm calling this an ethicological approach to touristic activity, and I want you to embrace these concepts. Past images have starkly depicted consequences of ignoring ethicological approaches. Today, many of the images presented will be of Nepal, gained from a 2011 Leeds Metropolitan University science expedition to the Makalu National Park. In 21 years of climbing and trekking, I have seen few improvements in mountain tourism for local people. Indeed, I sometimes wonder whether anything has changed at all. The aspirations of many Westerners are being fulfilled through mountain climbing and trekking, but often at the expense of the safety of local people. In Maslow's terms, while climbers and trekkers strive for self-actualization, we often do this by jeopardizing fundamental needs of workers at the base of the needs hierarchy. While Westerners operate at the summit apex, or growth end of the hierarchy, local people often sacrifice their physiological and safety needs in order to allow the chance for climbers and trekkers to self-actualize. Western ideologies and motivations sit uncomfortable with mountain environments and their inhabitants. If we are to truly immerse people in a mountain experience, we must forget how we live our lives back home. Time-bound, ordered, routine, self-centered, egotistical. Instead, we must allow inward journeys driven by an ethicological remit. That is, a fundamental understanding of what is right and wrong, fair and equitable, given any setting, environment or culture in which we find ourselves. We know that passing someone who is dying in order to reach the summit of Everest when we could make a difference to that person's life is fundamentally wrong. It's not good enough to use the excuse of she wasn't in our group or we didn't know who she was. Nepali workers risk their lives and regularly die for people who they know little about and have little attachment. Fixing ladders, rope work and making sure visitors are as safe as they can be in the mountains, regardless of who they are, is simply part of high altitude guiding. We know paying to be helicoptered out of the Everest region after some of the worst early winter storms for decades, simply to ensure the international flight from Kathmandu is not missed, and leaving Nepali workers to die trying to retrace their steps along treacherous avalanche-prone mountain paths is wrong. We know that asking ill-clad porters to venture high into the mountains without the necessary equipment to cope with the mountain conditions is wrong. We know that expecting people to work 18 hours a day for a period of 3 to 4 weeks in order to service basic needs at Western standards, those home comforts we expect to leave behind as we travel into the mountains, is wrong. We would not be happy doing this, so why should we be expecting others to do what we are not prepared to do ourselves? We know that porters carrying 65 kilograms for a day through difficult mountain terrain is wrong, and yet this still goes on despite policies to the contrary. And why does all this happen?
For an entire year. That's why I have to work as a Sherpa.
Again, we come back to Western ideologies of profit. Money is the all-important factor, because if we have spent £20,000 on a trip that would allow us to stand on top of Everest, then we'll make sure we do this, whatever it takes. Because we know that keeping costs down by whatever means we can will ensure profit. Because what is important in all of this is making sure we achieve our goals. And we can come back to our friends and family and show everyone our achievements, regardless of the cost to others. Organisations need to recognise that tourists are far more discerning than in the past. Access to the information, lots of information, means informed decision making. Many climbers and trekkers want to have their experience and come back with a clear conscience. I am therefore asking organisations to take action by thinking globally and acting locally based on ecological principles. That is, that we all instinctively know what is right and wrong, fair and equitable. Let us unwrap this in a little more detail. Thinking globally means you are aware that tourists are changing, becoming more informed, wanting an immersed experience. Thinking globally means being acutely aware of the interconnectedness of the world and the shrinking nature of its existence through this interconnectivity, and how we might make interconnectivity an important part of the touristic experience at local level. Acting locally means not waiting for the latest countrywide policy or procedure to shape practices, but instead implementing ecological practices, however small, that will inform and shape the practices of others. Acting locally may be as simple as litter picking on the trail or using as much of the existing infrastructure as possible. Tea houses, lodges, eating local food, so that money is spread across communities. Acting locally could mean passing on the costs of essential safety gear for all people on the trek, not including the Nepali workers, to the discerning tourist who will often be happy to pay more, knowing the safety of the whole group is being considered. There is a growing affluent customer base that, with a moral conscience, wanting shared experiences, ensuring global interconnectedness can be a reality at local level. There's far more to mountaineering and climbing and trekking than the goals of reaching summits or achieving planned journeys. Total immersion into the mountains and culture can be a life-changing experience. Ecological practices would embrace fundamental human rights and values of fairness and equity for all involved in climbing and trekking. Thinking globally and acting locally based on ecological practices will undoubtedly develop a more responsible and sustainable approach to trekking, where local people are more valued and their contributions and they're more valued for their contribution, and fairness and equity is reality for all involved. Thank you very much.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we've had our 3 speakers now. Can I ask for some more?